I'm going to start by asking you, Fleur, if you tell us a bit about the. Oh, hello. Hi. You can see us now. Hello, everyone. Tell us a bit about the origin story of this film. How did it come to you, and what convinced you that you wanted to bring it to life?
I think I was writing my own script that was a sci-fi project that was also about a couple. When I met with Stephen Woolley, who had that script of the assessment, and at the time I was already to that sci-fi kind of universe, and I was also trying for years to have kids, and I couldn't get pregnant, and I was trying adoption meetings, so I was in the process of tests and all that, and all the, I would say, like the conversation with my husband that were behind that, the fact, why do I really want a child, and questions that I think when you have kids naturally you don't ask yourself those questions. And so when I received the script, I could totally understand what Mia and Oriane could feel, and so I thought that would be this idea of this absurd test was very interesting to me. So I was like, okay, maybe I can get something into that, because all the characters and the emotion needed to be developed, and I thought I could totally dive into that.
Mm-hmm. Elizabeth, tell us a bit about your sort of initial reaction to this script and what drew you to Mia.
I think that the biggest thing for me with this script was I loved the rules of the world, and I loved the rules of the assignment or the game that the three of them had to play. Those are films that I like watching, because I think there's when you have rules of a world that's just outside of your own, I feel like it's, as an audience member, I get to have more interesting thoughts about these themes and questions of our existence, whereas sometimes when something's hyper realistic, you're just comparing your own experiences as opposed to allowing for like the freedom of things to be stranger potentially within a piece. And so within that, you feel like you have a bit more freedom as an actor, I think, of how you're going to tell this story and in what ways you'll find a tone. And so I was excited by that within the construct of the story of the script, and then it was mostly Fleur's previous filmmaking with her music videos that I was so impressed by. I was inspired by, I was impressed by. I wanted to understand the person who made the decisions to find the lenses they did, move the cameras the way they did, find the faces that she found. Like, there's some really crazy characters in her pieces, and then also like a wild amount of beauty and light, and so I was really excited to see what she would do with this film.
Mm-hmm. I'm glad you mentioned music videos, because Fleur, I want to ask you about your background and how that background informed your feature debut, and how it perhaps changed the way that you thought about this project, or maybe this project sort of changed the way you thought about your previous work, maybe.
I think what is great in working in music videos is that you have a lot of freedom, so you can explore a lot of things. So it allowed me to also, I was able to shoot a lot. So when I write on set, I'm more at ease. I love to be on set, and I know how to explore the camera and all that. But then it was mostly conceptual and visual, and the work with Lizzie, Alicia, and Imesh, that was priceless. And that brings I don't know, it brings like so much more depth to everything, because I used to think more visually, and now I was also because I could feel for the story. So and it was great to also be together for that long time. The length also of the work, even working on the script, it's like yeah. In French, you say long métrage, like long.
I want to ask about the set design and the visuals and all of those things you just mentioned. But first and foremost, where did you all do the bulk of filming, and how did you sort of select where you wanted to film to get the look that you were going for?
I knew from the beginning in the script there was so it was always a house on the beach. So I knew that I didn't want it to be a paradise landscape, the best beach island and all that. I knew that we needed to have a kind of threatening environment, because there has been like the kind of end of the world before. They had to rebuild the whole system, how humanity lives and all that. So I wanted something that feels a little bit different and very raw. So all that was very important, and so because I needed complete control over the house, we decided that we shoot the exterior in Tenerife, which has also great tax rebates.
That's helpful. Good incentive.
And I love the look of it. It's like volcanic. There's a lot of wind. It's not an easy place to shoot, but it gives. It's great also for the cast, you know, to feel that. So we found the
There
place.
were also a lot of wildfire, very massive wildfire.
Yeah, the one we were there.
Shooting.
Yeah, I don't know if you remember, there was like massive fires in the Canary Island, in the Tenerife, at
A couple years ago.
Yeah. And so first we decided to build the entrance and the exterior of the house there, and the whole greenhouse was completely built on set. And then the interior of the house was built in studio in Germany, where we had like another producer, Olsen, who helped us with all that part. So I could create a house that doesn't exist, because I didn't want to use like a billionaire house on the beach, you know.
Yeah.
Even though we love billionaires, of course. Yeah. So I wanted to have a house that was our own. So we had to create that in studio and just do like the exterior. And after we build the entrance, they enter, and after it's CGI the rest of the house when you see from outside.
It's so wild to think about what most producers would tell a filmmaker to do, which is, we'll find like a great house on a beach somewhere, and it'll be really modern looking. And that was the complete opposite of what we did. It was I mean, so innovative from your mind and your design, and with you and Jan together.
I'm curious, because when we were talking earlier, Elizabeth, you'd mentioned that something that was unique about this character for you was how in touch with nature she is. And so did that landscape that you were in sort of affect your ability to get into character and to feel as connected to nature as she is?
Yes, completely. I think we all, as actors, I'm not sure how you felt, Fleur, but as actors, I think Himesh, Alicia, and I felt very daunting to do all the exteriors before ever doing a single scene inside the house, which are kind of like our biggest pillars of scenes. Yet I can't imagine doing it any other way, because the wind, being in the water, being in that environment, the rockiness of the ground, never feeling stable. I think we all needed to experience that to understand what energy we were bringing into the set, because sets, even if they're done so beautifully, it's sometimes hard to imagine what the world is outside of them and to feel like there's life inside. And so I do think that we benefited from shooting the exteriors first, because we really understood, I really understood the connection that she needed to have to be as like wild and rough and kind of tough to like survive this existence. And also just to say, I mean, it was one of the most beautiful set pieces I've ever seen, is this greenhouse, because it was all real. Every single piece of it was a real plant. There wasn't one thing that was artificial in it. The irrigation system functioned properly. I mean, it was really remarkable. And then we lit it on fire, and that was real, and it wasn't effects. And we thought that we'd have like a safe distance to watch it from, and then glass started popping, and then we had to be removed from the shot. And I've never had the opportunity to react to something that was that practical in my entire life. And so there was all, you know, it was.
And also you have to say that she wanted to do her stunt herself, so she went into the greenhouse on fire.
Yeah.
Which is like,
yeah. But those were
I was
controlled
like,
fires. But those were controlled fires.
Yeah, but still.
I trusted the special effects department that they were controlled. And then we really blew it up. And those kinds of, I think you can tell the difference when you watch something, when you have the ability to really allow for the real things that you're responding and reacting to. And I think it is important to the performance, and it's important to the stakes of the film and the piece. And it was heartbreaking to watch it happen. Surrounded by a fire department, by the way. We didn't start the wildfires in Tenerife. Could you imagine? What bad press that would be.
We were talking about the set design, and I feel as though the set design is such a character in this film. I think it wouldn't be the same film that it is, and wouldn't have the same feeling without so many intentional choices that y'all made in terms of the look and even the feel of the house. Tell us a little bit about those choices that were made, the colors, the furniture, everything was just so precise. I'm curious about the thought process behind them.
So it all comes from the story, and for example, the fact that we knew that Mia is working to grow plants, so it means that there's no forest anymore, so there's no wood, so everything comes from what they have there, which is in Tenerife, like the sand, the earth, so it means concrete, stained glass, so it gives an indication of the material that we could use. Then we had the color code, because it's about parenting and kids. I wanted a color code that with primary colors that reminds that universe. So we created a dome that they could build. That was a nightmare for in conception. That had those colors, and there was also the tiny toys that she was playing with. We imagined that when they were going on the beach would send back like the remaining of plastic toys that will never go away in our city, So all those things we were thinking about. There was a piece of art in the house that are made of those plastic things. And then I think it was very important for Mia's character that her greenhouse, she could repair, touch, fix everything herself, because that they have access to an incredible technology, but she wants to do it herself because she's so grounded, and she likes to have an interaction, and when Orion is the opposite of that. He lives in his studio. It's a complete empty space where he can control everything with his voice, like kind of play God. So everything makes sense with the character and the story, and that was important for us, that it has a meaning for the story also.
I'm glad you mentioned Arian, because this relationship between Mia and Arian is so interesting. They're such opposites in so many ways, especially as you mentioned in their sort of approach to work and their working space. But of course, they're very much united in this goal of having a child. And so, Elizabeth, tell us a little bit about working with Himesh and how the two of you built the relationship that you have, knowing that it was going to be tested in some deeply disturbing and profound ways.
Well, I think the thing that was surprising to Himesh and I in our own kind of experience of, I guess, healthy relationships is that me and Aryan have so many secrets that to us were kind of shocking secrets that come out in the film. And so then you have to think, well, then what is it that they are bonded over, and they are bonded over their work, and there's an immense amount of respect that they have for one another. And that was something that was a driving force and connector for us, that they don't yell, they're very respectful and love each other unconditionally. And I think it's through this experience, and I think like lots of people, this happens when you're in a situation where you're trying to understand why one person in this stage of a relationship, potentially if it happens, would want a child, and what that means to each person. And I think if those are not aligned and certain things come out, it can be quite confusing and destabilizing. But we spoke about this being the first time they would ever kind of have these extremely passive aggressive and then also like outwardly aggressive moments with one another because of the stakes of the situation. And also they're both like type A winners in their life, and this is the first time that they cannot understand how they can't like smart their way into passing this situation. And then the absurdity is that no one can, which was I think Fleur's talked about how absurd this situation can be when with especially with trying to have a child. You just the only thing you can do is laugh. And so that was kind of the tone that we were always trying to. I think the reason why I loved Himesh's performance so much in the film is because he was so great at knowing what the humor was from being the straight man, and I really appreciated watching him like discover that in real time. It was always very entertaining for me.
I also, of course, want to ask you about working with Alicia, who is just remarkable in this film, and the roles that your characters play throughout the film change so much. Sometimes even in one scene where sometimes it's she's sort of like an exam proctor and you're a student, and sometimes it's mother-daughter, and then eventually there's this sort of mutual understanding. How did the two of you work together to I don't know, conquer such a complicated relationship?
I mean, what a force to get to work with. I felt so lucky that she came onto this job. She's such a physical actress, and she's such a determined collaborator, I think, for all of us. And it was just so fun for us to constantly problem solve along the way. Or maybe not problem solve, because it's not there. I think there's always a problem, but how to think of something in the most interesting, dynamic way possible. That felt like it was really fun for me to watch her know the ending of the film and see how early it was that she was feeding into the performance from the beginning. And so I enjoyed just kind of being on the receiving end of that. But she and I, a lot of it was on the page, and but not all of it was. It's clear that they have their adversaries at the beginning, and then there has to be a sense of betrayal by the end. So there has to be some sort of intimacy based on the language I use, at least in the film, of feeling like we assuming that we had a connection in some way, and there's something very vulnerable to tell someone like, oh, I thought like they had this thing, and so that was there. But I think Alicia had brought up quite early that she wanted to figure out these moments of connection that were off the page, that weren't written into whether it was like a stage direction or within the dialogue itself. And so we had a lot of fun kind of finding what those moments would be, because these women seeing themselves in one another was really important for the decisions that they make at the end of the film, which ultimately are the same kind of courageous decision, even though they look different based on their circumstances. But it is the most courageous thing they could do in their situations, I believe. And so it was really special to kind of figure out what those moments are that would lead to something like that that's so extreme.
think I have time for one more question, and so I want to ask both of you, what would you say was the most rewarding part of creating this film?
I think shooting it.
Yeah.
Because like when you develop for so long and like so many things happen for this film not to happen before.
Yeah.
There was the strikes, the fire, there was a storm the day before we
Swimming.
she was swimming and you were not
Bad
at ease.
swimmer. Scared of sharks.
We lost the location a week before where we built the house. Yeah, like some activists thought we were building an hotel complex and they created a YouTube channel to put pressure on the government, who invented a new law to forbid us because we had like a paper saying that we were allowed, and so the mayor had to invent a new law to forbid us.
Little did they know it was like a film that is about the environment.
Yeah. You're like, we're on the same side here, I promise.
And my sister is working on the environment, so at some point I called her. I was like, "Don't you know someone there? Can you come in?" And so I mean to have your main location and it's a chamber piece a week before, it was quite crazy. And the original DP I was working with 10 days before disappeared from the planet. Like I still have no news.
I mean, he's
My
alive.
phone-
We know he's alive. But he just
had
didn't
like
show up.
personal problem, and we waited with the car at the train station, never entered the car.
Oh my gosh.
It was really hard.
Well, I'm glad that the film got made. I think that's a victory. That's a fair victory.
Yeah.
What about you, Lizzie?
I think the most there are many things that felt very rewarding working on this. I think one of my like personal goals recently has been to try and find an edge as a performer and figure out how you push beyond it. And you really can only do that when you're in a safe environment with the people you're collaborating with. And by safe, I mean like not like I mean like there's a collective spirit and goal reaching towards the same thing, where you like if you make a bad choice, you don't feel ashamed for it. And I think this goes hand in hand with the experience of making the film. It's just, you don't always get to have a job where you want to spend all the time you have off with the people you're working with, and this was that job. And it was very special. Some of us were traveling with families, some of us weren't, and we all just got together as many times as we could, and that feeds itself into your own comfort, trying to push your own boundaries, and your own limitations that you feel like you put upon yourself. And so there's a lot of rewarding aspects to making this film. And another rewarding aspect is being able to share it in the theater. I think that was very hard for our team. I'm not a producer on it, but the people who made this film to fight for, specifically domestically in the United States. It was very hard to fight for getting to have a theatrical release, which was very important to all of us. It's a visual film. And it's a medium that's supposed to be shared with people, and so very grateful that Magnolia saw that as well and cared enough to also put it in theaters. So that's very important and rewarding, and so grateful you guys are all showing up for it.
Thank you guys so much, and thank you all for being here. If you could all stay seated while we make our way out during this engagement, but thank you.